everyone, welcome to Friday Fun. Here I am out in the native garden and I'm sitting with this beautiful bush right here. It's called a California lilac. Look at all the purple flowers. This one is so fun because the pollen on these flowers is actually white and there's a lot of little honeybees all over. And that's the perfect thing to talk about because we're talking about bees today. So if you look carefully, you can find there's a honeybee over here and there's one up there. Maybe Miss Susan can come in close. And if there's any pollen in their back pollen pouches, it's going to be white because they're collecting pollen from this lilac flower and the pollen is white instead of orange or yellow. Probably also collecting some nectar too. So here we are in the native garden and things are really blooming and really beautiful. And there's a lovely fragrance. It just smells so good to be out. So I'd like to start with a little finger poem, and you can do it with me. So put your fists together, make two fists, and lay them out. And the poem goes like this. Here is the beehive, but where are the bees? Hiding inside, where nobody sees. Watch and you'll see them come out of the hive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to try it again? Maybe you can do the words with me. Here is the beehive, but where are the bees? Hiding inside, where nobody sees. Watch and you'll see them come out of the hive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they all fly away. That's fun, huh? So we're talking about a hive, and let me show you what the honeycomb looks like, the wax that the bees build inside the hive. They fill it with honey, or they fill it with eggs and make baby bees. Look at that. This is from the pollen that they've collected. They can turn it into wax, and they make these little cells, these little openings where the bees back end can push right in and make that shape. So when it's filled with honey or it's filled with baby bees, these ones are all empty so you can really see them. So nice, so pretty. So I wanted to talk more about bees. First, I'm going to wipe off all of my bee makeup on my hands. I use some erasable markers, so washable markers, so I could just get it off with a little bit of water. And then I won't get it all over everything else. But maybe I need a little bit of soap, but I'll get most of it off. So honeybees are the ones we see the most of. There's so many around. And I have a big picture of a honeybee. Look at those big eyes and the little antennas. And of course, it's an insect, so it has 6 legs. 3 on this side, 1, 2, 3, and 3 on the other side. They can't really see them. 4, 5, and 6. And like all insects, it has 3 body parts, the head and the thorax and the abdomen. And the abdomen is all about digestion, and if it's the queen making the eggs, and at the end of the abdomen on the honeybee, we know there's a stinger. Also, honeybees, of course, have wings, and it looks like she's only got 2 wings, but really, there's 2 on each side. When they come apart, there's 4. And you can see all the little hairs. This is great for catching pollen, and then she uses her back leg to wipe them clean and store the pollen in these pollen pouches. Now I keep calling her a her because most all of our honeybees are girls. The queen, of course, is a girl. She lays the eggs and she's much bigger. But the boy honeybees, they don't live very long and they don't do much of the work. All these bees that we see out here are girls, and they are busy, busy, busy working hard, collecting pollen and collecting flower nectar. So the pollen they use for growing, for making the wax like I showed you, and for growing their bodies and growing their babies. And the nectar they use for energy. It takes a lot of energy to keep flapping and working really hard. So that's what they're out here doing. collecting pollen and collecting nectar. Some of it they're taking little sips for themselves, but some of it, most of it, they're bringing back to the hive. Look at her work. Oops, moving around. Oh, there she is. You can see on their abdomen they have little stripes, and mostly the color is sort of light orange and brown color. Bees are really fascinating animals. And did you know they have two stomachs? One stomach they call the honey stomach, and the other stomach is the regular stomach. So if they put stuff into their honey stomach, that's just so they can carry it back to the hive, just so that they will bring it and get rid of it. The other stomach is one that goes down and gives them the energy and digestion. We're going to stop at another place here in the native garden where we have a pollinator house. It's for bees, but not for honeybees. So here we're inside of this mahogany bush. Well, I guess it's a tree. When we walked by, it was just buzzing. Let's listen. Those are all the bees working hard, make a little humming noise with their wings. So here's the mahogany tree we were just looking at and listening to. And now we're going to walk a little bit further to our pollinator house, or we can call it a bee house. I'm going to very carefully step past the plants and into the garden. And here it is. This is our pollinator house, and it's really, really cute. And it has a lot of little tubes and things sticking in and out of it. There's some wood, there's some tubes and more wood, and there's even some straw. And let me tell you how fun this is. So the pollinator house is not for the honeybee. The honeybee makes a hive in something like a hole of a tree. So the honeybee doesn't live in here. But we have a lot of bees that we call solitary bees, bees that live alone.
First, we're going to start with the bumblebee. It's not really a true solitary bee. She has babies and they live together.
And a bumblebee is big and fluffy and yellow and black. And some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller, but they're always really fuzzy. And bumblebees make their nest in the ground. So at the very bottom of our pollinator house, we have a little box with a little hole, and the bee can go in there. They kind of make it sometimes in the ground or sometimes in a little cavern, but this is for the bumblebee. And if you take a closer look, we'll get Miss Susan in here, and you can see all the interesting nesting materials that have been left inside this box for the bumblebee. That's really interesting. I'll put the cover back on. I don't see anybody in there yet. No one has moved in. And as we move up, we're going to look at some of the other holes here and holes in the wood. And let's see who needs those. The wood is for the carpenter bee. And the carpenter bee digs with his mouth, chews his way into wood, and makes chambers. And the chambers go down here and they make little cells. And in each cell, they will put an egg and a pollen ball, and then the baby will hatch and grow inside the cell and have to chew its way out as an adult when it has wings. When it's a baby, it's a larva. It looks kind of like a wormy caterpillar-y thing, but just wormy. The carpenter bee is big, and the carpenter bee is shiny black. And all the shiny black ones are the girls, the workers. And then sometimes there's the boys, and the boys are also big, but they're this golden yellow. So when you see the yellow one and it's really big, you're, oh, that must be the boy carpenter bee. Makes the nest inside the wood. So the next one I want to talk about uses these little tubes. And I'm trying to see if anybody has made any nests in those tubes. It's kind of hard to tell. There seems like there's some things that look like they could be. And this one is called the leaf cutter bee. And the leaf cutter bee uses a rolled up leaf as its home for the babies. As you can see, It's easier if I hold it this way. There is the leaf, and if you see a leaf, like this is from a rose plant that has these circles cut out, and a grasshopper or other caterpillars don't make these nice clean circles. This is the leaf cutter bee, and then carries that piece of leaf back to the tube, rolls it up, tucks it into the tube tight, and adds a pollen ball, and then seals it up, and then does it again. Let me show you how that process works. So you need a kind of a broad leaf, and this is not the most ideal leaf, but this one will work. And the leaf cutter bee will come and cut a circle with its mouth out of the leaf, leaving this lovely little circle in the leaf behind. Now it's going to take this little leaf and it's going to roll it up into a tube. And this is a challenging thing, but they're good at it. So once it's shaped like a tube, then they can stick it into one of those other tubes, lay the egg inside, and then pack in that pollen ball, and then chew up an extra little bit of leaf to make a little closure. So take that leaf and tuck it right into the tube. Oops, fell out. I'm not good at this. I'm not a bee. Leaf cutter bees are really good at this. They can put it all the way in, and she'll climb way into that tube, and she'll stuff it way in the back. And then that egg will hatch. The baby will eat the pollen and grow, and then make a pupa, and then emerge as an adult and have to come back out. That's our leaf cutter bee. The next one I want to talk about is called a mason bee. And a mason is a person that works with concrete or with some kind of building a wall, the mud stuff. So here's the mason bee, and it's basically kind of the same size as a honeybee. And this is the mason bee after it's visited a lot of pollen flowers. Look at all that pollen stuck to its body. So it's created a little mud in the tube, and maybe she's going to go into this one, and maybe there's going to be, she's going to lay an egg, she's going to make a pollen ball out of this, and then she's going to collect some more mud and stuff it in there, and then she'll do it again. So there'll be an egg with the pollen ball, and then a little wall of mud, and then an egg with a pollen ball and a wall of mud. She will fill up the tube. So this is a long tube. It's not coming all the way out, but you could get a lot of baby bees in there by filling them all up. So this is our pollinator house. That's for solitary bees, because once these bees hatch and become larvae and then pupa and then they emerge as adults, they never know their mom. They just come out and they do it all by themselves. They're solitary. So now we're looking at this beautiful lupine plant, and it smells so sweet. But what I wanted to show you is how it protects its pollen. The other flowers we just saw, the pollen is all out in the open, so if it rains, it gets washed off. But these guys, they have a special trick, and their little pollen is hiding inside. Do you see those little orange specks? They're covered up. Let me cover it up. They're covered up by the outside of the petal, so that when the bee lands here, the bee's weight kind of opens it up, and then they can collect the pollen. This one is the lupine, and it sure is pretty. I'll also see maybe bumblebees, sometimes honeybees too. We just saw a honeybee here also. Hopefully we can find some more bees.
Here are some poppies, and they're so pretty. They're blowing in the wind. And I just saw a tiny little bee fall in the flower. Let's see if we can find him. He fell in this flower. Oh good, he's still in there. Look at how teeny tiny that bee is. I don't even know what kind of bee this is, but this would be another solitary bee, and he would make his nest in the ground.
We walked over to this other area. I want to show you some things with some other plants that are flowering right now. The garden is inviting all the bees to wake up, and it's inviting the people to come see the beautiful flowers too. We're going to look up. This plant is called an agave. You can see it in the back. They have little pointy leaves on them, and it sends up this great big flower stalk up into the sky. And the bees love it because this one is so filled with nectar. And if we look a little bit closer, let's see if we can find one of those bees. There's one working, and there's more. This is a great big flower. This is a banquet for the bees. And as we go down, we can look right behind this agave flower spike, and there's a little one just starting. He's going to grow big and tall just like the other one. Now we're going to back up, and I'm going to show you some more flowers. These little red ones are called fairy dusters, and they're loaded with nectar. The bees love these, and the hummingbirds too. And there's plenty of these fairy duster flowers. And then below that, we have some cactus and these beautiful cactus blossoms. Look inside. Inside each flower, there is so much pollen. This is the pollen dust of the cactus. So the bees can come in here and collect all this pollen. And if we look right behind it, there's another bud ready to open up maybe in a day or two. And then there's a whole bunch of little baby ones, and they'll be opening up in the next week or so. So many beautiful flowers in the garden. Now we're going to head over to the preserve and see what we can find over there. We walked into the preserve, and we just walked a little bit from the gate to the big map. And as we're standing at the big map, we look right behind it, and there's a beautiful bladder pod bush with a lot of yellow flowers. And if you look closely, there are so many bees enjoying the bladder pod. Let's walk in and look a little closer. So we've come in a little closer to the bladder pod to show you how the bees are enjoying those flowers. If you look really close, maybe Miss Susan will show you a harlequin bug too. If you look a little bit up, there's a harlequin bug right in between some of those bees. Maybe she can, little lower. No, I see bees. Here's some harlequin bugs. There's 3 of them. And there's a bee in there too. And the bees coming out just got a bunch of nectar and flying around enjoying the bladder pod bush.
Now we've walked over to the bouncy bridge, and I wanted to show you where bees make their home in the wild. In the tree right here, we have a honeybee hive. And the honeybees, if we get as much water as we did last time, will end up underwater. Their beehive will be too wet. They'll have to drink up all that honey and move and find a new location. So Miss Susan's going to get in close. Look carefully. There are honeybees all over. And inside their little nest, you can sometimes it looks a little shiny because there's a little bit of sticky honey. Look at all those bees. They're so busy. I don't think they're moving out yet, but they're probably thinking they might have to move again. And maybe they'll move exactly to where they moved last time. I don't exactly know where that is, but I'm sure that they will remember. So for now, their honeybee hive is not underwater, but they have to be ready when the next big rain comes.
Well, we found a lovely shady place to do the story, so we're going to read our story. And today our book is called Brilliant Bees, and it's about honeybees. And they actually are kind of smart. Here they're working on their honeycomb. A honeybee lands lightly on a flower, and she sips the sweet nectar with her long, thin tongue. Look, she spots a whole cluster of nectar-filled blossoms. See that long tongue coming out? She's drinking all that nectar. She flies straight home to let her hive know. But how will the little honeybee show all the others just where to go? So she flies home to her beehive inside this hole in this tree. Now, honeybees, they can't talk like we can. Let's see how she tells them. She dances a brilliant bee dance. She loops around in a figure eight, waggles her body, shake, shake, shake. The bees touch and smell her with their sensitive feelers. Her dance tells them where the flowers are, which way to go, and exactly how far. The flowers are more than a mile away, but the honeybee easily finds the way. Their see-through wings hum as they busily fly from blossom to blossom. Oh, look what kind of plant they found. Strawberries. Sip, sip, sip. They collect sweet nectar. As they do, they carry yellow pollen on furry legs and bodies from one flower to another. Carrying pollen from flower to flower helps the plant form fruits and seeds. This is called pollination, and it's one big job of honeybees. Now the bees brush pollen into their tiny baskets on their back legs. They collect nectar in a special stomach called a honey sac. And when they're full, they fly straight home to store it all in their honeycomb. So they have all of their pollen on their legs, and inside their honey tummy, they have their nectar. Inside the hive, thousands of honeybees work smoothly together, helping each other stay alive. Some bees clean and polish the hive. Others build wax cells, each with 6 perfect sides. The cells are built with an upward tilt, so the sweet nectar doesn't drip or spill. Some bees fan the nectar. How? With their wings. Slowly it thickens and turns into rich, yummy honey. Others guard and protect the hive. They sting if an animal comes too close, so I'm careful to stay a safe distance away. Some bees feed the babies, and others feed the queen bee. The queen's only job is to lay thousands of eggs day after day. She's in the middle, she's bigger. She lays those little eggs in each cell. They'll hatch into larvae. The eggs grow quickly, and soon they change completely from soft larva babies into full-grown honeybees. The new bees join right with the hive, working smoothly together to keep the colony alive. Honeybees are brilliant dancers, builders, and honeymakers, and most important, pollinators. Many, many plants and trees are pollinated by honeybees. Apples and apricots, avocados, cherries, strawberries, raspberries, grapes, and blueberries. Peaches, pears, watermelon, plum, cranberries, cantaloupe, cucumbers, and almonds. And the list goes on. We have lots of reasons to thank the bees for honey and beeswax, for helping the plants form fruits and seeds. Thank you, little honeybees. And then there's some more that tells you a little bit more about each different kind of bee. And here's a picture of the egg. Turns into a larva, and then the larva turns into a cocoon, and then the cocoon busts open and emerges as an adult honeybee. So that's our story about bees today. They're really hard workers, and they're mostly girls. So we walked out onto the berm, which is sort of off the middle road into the middle of the preserve, and I wanted to show you a birdhouse. We hung up a birdhouse for a special falcon, but the falcon never had a chance to move in because the honeybees moved in first, and they made a honey hive inside the birdhouse. And if we watch for a moment, we'll see some bees coming and going. There's one flying around. She's looking around. She might be just protecting the hive. We've been watching a few of them coming and going. Here comes a bee. There she goes. Into the hive. Oops, came back out.
Now we've walked into the plant nursery, and here we see some honeybees at the bottom of a pot. What are they doing? What they're doing is they're getting a little drink. They're getting a little drink of water somewhere where they can't fall in and drown.
So here at the end of the berm, we have a lot of bush sunflowers, and they're blooming with big, beautiful yellow flowers. And there's a lot of honeybees and some of the little tiny ones hanging around here in the sunflowers. Let's take a closer look. Just collecting nectar and pollen, and as she goes from flower to flower, she's spreading a little pollen from the last flower to this flower. And that's how the sunflower can make all those seeds. And all those seeds are going to be great food for all those birds, maybe even some mice. And maybe some of them will fall to the ground and grow more sunflowers. So I know that some of you are a little nervous getting close to bees because bees can sting, and a bee sting really hurts. But a bee has no desire. They don't want to sting you because if the bee stings you, she's going to die. The stinger comes out and pulls part of her body out with it. Now, I can get very close to a bee. As long as I move in very slowly, she has no interest in stinging me because I'm not a danger to her. Maybe if I tried to capture her in my closed hand, she might sting me because she feels like I'm a threat. So bees, they don't want to sting you because they don't want to die. And they certainly are not worried about me being close. I've been stung by a bee before, and I got stung by a bee when I stepped on it because I was barefoot, and that happens sometimes. And some of our native bees, some of our solitary bees, don't have any stinger at all, like this little one right here. There's a little tiny bee on the sunflower. Oh, shoot, I touched the flower. Maybe the bee will come back. Oh, come on, please land. Some of the bees don't have any stinger at all, but the honeybees do. So we do have to be careful, but we don't have to be afraid. Well, that was our lesson on bees today. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Bye.